Alright guys, so today I want to cover the topic of selecting the proper reptile enclosure for your pet snake. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of varied opinions on that. So before we jump into that, I'd like to tell you about the upcoming reptile show. So I'm all ready for the show. I have my display and I labeled everything. Figured out all the pricing for all my snakes. So I'm bringing 60 snakes. They'll all be ball python hatchlings. And I'll be attending 3 shows. So the first show is the Colorado Exotic Pet Expo on September 9th, 2018. And that's less than a week away, so I'm pretty pumped about that. And then if you can't make it to that show, there's another show, the Denver Repticon. I think that's like 5 weeks later. And then 3 weeks after that is the the Reptilian Nation is coming to town, and I signed up for that show, so I'll be vending at all 3 shows. And out of my 60 snakes, the cheapest one is $20. The most expensive one is $2,000. I'm actually bringing 3 of my holdbacks. So I kind of went through my snakes and I was like, I can't hold all these back. I just don't have enough room. So you guys are going to get to kind of cherry pick over some of my best stuff too. And my total value for all my snakes, if someone walked up to the table, first thing and bought them all, is probably about $15,000. So there's going to be everything from the low end to the high end and everything in between. So if you're looking for a pet snake, investment quality, nothing really over $2,000. I won't have any $30,000 snakes, but I'll have quite a good selection. So let's talk about reptile enclosures for your pet snake, and specifically let's talk about ball pythons. And I actually, when I first started, this room was completely different. So if you take a look at this room, I have all ARS racks in the whole thing. And these racks right here, these 2 racks are for my rodents, and then the rest, these are for my breeder ball pythons. These are all for my hatchlings, and then these are for my grow outs. And I got a couple of big retics on the bottom and big boa tubs. So when I first started, I actually had wire shelving in here, and I think I had like a shelf over here. And I had the beginning of a rack over here. So I started with just the first rack that I bought was just some of these 70-30s and a boa tub on the bottom for my retic, and it basically sat right on the ground over here. And then over on this side of the room, I had basically another wire shelf, and all the wire shelves I had aquariums. And I had all my snakes in aquariums. I started with, actually the first snakes that I bought were king snakes, and I was just in love with king snakes, and I think they're a really cool snake, a really cool pet. And the problem with king snakes is when you breed a king snake to a king snake, you get a bunch of king snakes. And ball pythons, you know, I didn't realize what I was doing at first, I guess. So there's a few things you can do with king snakes. There's a few morphs, but nowhere near the number of mutations as in ball pythons. So, you know, I got into king snakes, and then I went to my first reptile show at the NARBC in Tinley Park. And let me tell you, people are crazy over ball pythons. They're crying around the table so tight that you can't even hardly see them. And, you know, you see some tables with king snakes that, you know, don't get visited very much. So you kind of look at, you know, supply and demand and the mutations and kind of what's hot on the market, and that's kind of why I decided to get more into ball pythons. And the funny thing is there's a lot of people. Actually, the person that gave me the idea for this video was one of my viewers. And my viewers are great, so the community is great on YouTube. And there's, I'd say, probably 95, 98, 99% of the comments are all positive. And then you get these people that are like, they're like kids in the park. And it's like you bring Grandpa to the park and you sit him on the bench and you say, "Hey kids, let's go over and talk to Grandpa." And, you know, so the kids huddle around Grandpa and they start asking questions and they're like, "Grandpa, why is your hair so white? Grandpa, why do you laugh so much? Grandpa, why are your teeth so yellow?" It's just, you know, just this is those comments that I see on my YouTube channel that people post. And there was a couple of them that were almost exactly the same. And they're like, "Why do you put ball pythons in dark tubs and put them in racks? Isn't that really cruel to the snakes?" And what you really need to do is you need to realize where ball pythons come from. And ball pythons actually originate in Africa, and they live at the bottom of a termite mound in the ground, in a hole. So it's not like they're running around, you know, in the grass or in the trees, and you grab them and throw them in a tub. And it's kind of hard for people to understand that, you know, snakes in a tub, especially ball pythons, you know, that is really where they are the most comfortable. And people look at my ball pythons and they're like, "Well, you have them in a tub, but there's no hide." So basically this tub acts like an entire hide for the snake. So when I first started, I had aquariums, and I had these hides that were, you know, just barely big enough to hold a ball python. And I'd come into the room, and it was like I had 20 empty aquariums in the room. And all the snakes were always in their hide, always, always. And then you go to feed the snakes, and what you do is they wouldn't be looking out of the hole in the hide, so you'd pick up the hide, and then they'd freak out. And, and trying to feed snakes in aquariums with hides, let me tell you, it's really tough. The snakes don't want to eat. It's a lot harder. And then when I first got my rack, it was like night and day. I couldn't even believe it. So I took a snake. I took basically most of my snakes. I put them in this first rack over here. And I'd say within the first day, they were all just going crazy and eating like crazy. And I just couldn't believe, you know, how active and how aggressively they fed. And it seemed like they went from kind of being afraid and intimidated to being right at home. And that's when I knew a tub, especially these gray tubs. So some people actually have like clear tubs, and I don't think that's kind of the same. Some of these tubs with the clear fronts, it seems like the ball pythons aren't quite as comfortable. Like you'd almost want to cover the whole front too. The only thing I like about the clear fronts is you can tell if they make a mess. But I think the solid tub is really the way to go. So basically what I do is I start in a small tub. This is basically a hatchling tub. This is an ARS 1039, and this is perfect for hatchling, and this guy's probably a couple months old. This guy will be at the show if you're interested in a coral glow. 50% het pied. So basically they say the tub should be the same size as the snake. So this snake could grow, I'd say, probably another 6 months in this tub. And then once they outgrow that tub, what you really want to do is you want to move them to a tub like this. And this is an ARS 5040 tub. And in here they can actually get quite a bit bigger than this. And I would say some people can keep adults in this pretty well, but I kind of like to move them. So after the grow out, I like to go to something like this. So take a look at this one. So this is let me bring this one down. I'll show off my pied female. And she's pretty big. She didn't breed last year, but I'd say a snake this big would not be comfortable in a 50-40. This is probably just about the right size of an enclosure for a ball python for this size of a snake. And I would say that You know, in a 30 series tub, a ball python can almost live out its life comfortably in an enclosure like this. And you know, the only time I really take them out is to clean their tubs. They're completely comfortable and completely happy in a tub like this. As a matter of fact, sometimes they'll stick their head out and they'll put it back in. Like, leave me in my tub. And I found they're very happy in a tub like this. And originally I kind of started with Reptichip or coconut husk bedding. And let me show you what that looks like. So let me put this girl away. Let me show you real quick too with the camera there. So how dark it is in this tub. So when I close this tub up, it is incredible. It's just like a hive. So that just goes to show you, you know, ball pythons really like a dark environment, and that kind of simulates them living in a big, huge cavity under the termite mound. And that's where they're from, and you know, that's kind of what you should reproduce. So oops, that's my empty tub. I think I have one up here with coconut husk. Yeah, so originally what I did is well, actually, when I first started, I started with newspaper and paper towels because my snakes had mites at the very beginning. But now, after I got rid of all the mites, I kind of originally switched to kind of a coconut husk bedding. And this stuff is fantastic. It really retains the moisture, takes the smells out, absorbs the urine, keeps it really clean. You can spot clean it. There's a couple problems with it. So what I found is normally, so there's a hot spot right back in the back here. And the hot spot is basically, if you look back here, it's just this, well, you can't really see because it's in the dark, but there's a metal panel that goes in the back, and I'd say it's about that wide, and it goes right across here, and it keeps it at 90 degrees. So when a snake eats, when a ball python eats, what it really wants to do is it wants to sit on the hot spot at 90 degrees to digest the food. And the problem is what it does, what you'll eventually find happening is the snake will dig into the substrate and it'll sit right on the plastic. And essentially what you have is a snake in an empty tub. And then if it goes to the bathroom, then sometimes it kind of sits in it, and there's nothing to really absorb it. So that was one of the reasons I kind of went back to a paper towel, so at least they can sit on the hot spot with a little bit of something absorbent, and it'll absorb their mess. I can say that paper towel is a lot more work, I'd say, than this. The other thing I noticed is that when they eat a rat, sometimes they get this in their mouth, and I was kind of concerned that you know, they would eat some of this, and I know some of them they would have it stuck in their lip for a couple of days, and it really kind of concerned me. So that's another reason I kind of went back to just the paper towels, and a lot of people just use like a butcher paper or something like that. And for a while I switched to this product called Reptisorb, and it's kind of like a pre-cut liner, and that was really nice. But I'm kind of still looking for the best substrate. I almost wish I could find something just like Reptisorb, but that was thicker, a lot thicker. Maybe like as thick as like 4 or 5 paper towel thickness, and maybe a little bit stiffer so the snake couldn't really move it around. And so that's basically where I came from and where I'm at with the ball pythons. So one other thing is, so everything I told you up to now is basically just for ball pythons. So ball pythons live in termite mounds in Africa, but if you're thinking about doing a different snake, it's completely different. So take a look at this. I actually have some California king snakes. This is This is a banana cow king up here. Oh, let me bring her down. Ooh, if she doesn't bite me. I don't know if she's right there. She could have bit me. But, so this is my California king snake. And so for California kings, they do not like heat. So in this one, I actually completely turned off the heat panel. And it's 81 degrees in this room, which is about perfect. And a snake like this, I would say, they're more of a like a forest dweller, I would say. So I don't think really a California king snake is really as comfortable as a ball python long term in a tub. And I'm actually, you know, if I sell a lot of snakes at my first couple shows and I have some room on my table, I'm actually going to put these guys out for sale. And I try to take these guys out as much as possible and kind of handle them because I really think they need more of an open tank. I actually had these guys in glass tanks with like wood and branches, and I think it was a lot better of an environment for a snake like this. This one's going all over. This is a female banana phase California king, and she's one of the ones I started with, and I decided I'm not going to breed her, but she's a really cool snake. You know, as far as handling snakes, I would say king snakes are one of the best because they're really curious and really active. And if you just kind of watch their head and their tongue, they're a lot more spry than a ball python, and have a lot more personality, I think, than a lot more movement than a ball python in their head and their movement. So that's the king snake, and then I have one more snake I want to show you down here, and that is a reticulated python. And a retic is a completely different beast than either one of those snakes. So, so a reticulated python, probably the biggest challenge is keeping up with the growth rate on a snake like this. I actually started in a small tub with her, and then kind of like a hatchling rack, and then you move to this rack, and then you move to something like this, and then before you know it, you're in here, and then before you know it, she's almost ready to outgrow this. So the hardest part is coming up with the money to keep buying the new enclosures for the retic. And she almost could use like a whole entire 10 by 10 room all by herself, you know, with trees and branches and a pond and everything. And I think that's kind of, you know, where this girl's headed eventually. But it's a matter of, you know, where am I going to put it and how am I going to design it, and how am I going to get in there and clean it without her getting too crazy and wild in feeding mode. So I'll keep this discussion mostly to the ball pythons. And I think a rack system like these is perfect for ball pythons. And a lot of people just don't understand where the snake comes from and what they're comfortable with. And hopefully this kind of helped you kind of shed a light on keeping ball pythons. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.